I'm excited to share this with you. I normally share my sketchbook flip throughs on Patreon and Instagram, but I thought that I would start up my YouTube channel again. That's one of my 2022 New Year's resolutions. And I thought, what better way than to give you a peek into the 31 sketchbooks that I filled in 2021. Not all of them are completely filled. Some of them are only like a couple pages, but I did work in 31 sketchbooks in total, which is really exciting for me because I had a pretty rough year in terms of art. I went kind of through this huge art crisis, and since then I've been slowly trying to figure out what it is I'm trying to say with my work and what it is I'm trying to do and what I want my art to look like. So the past year has been pretty all over the place, and so I'm pretty proud that I was able to fill or work in 31 sketchbooks when I feel like that's more than I've ever really done. So this is the first sketchbook. I actually think that there are more that come before this, but I have no idea where they are, so this is just the first one I have. But this one kind of marks the beginning of everything changing. I made this sketchbook. I have a shop, which I'll link in the description, but I made this book with the idea that I would fill it in 1 month, so in March, and I thought that I had no idea that I was like about to go into this phase of change. I was just going about my normal, usual art, and if you've seen my older stuff, you'll know that I worked with watercolors and all of that, so that's kind of how it started. There's, it looks like I started it on the 17th. Oh no, I started it on the 2nd and finished it on the 17th. So, there's a lot of stuff, like this is very much like my old work. And then I started to hit a wall where I didn't really know what I was doing, and I felt really frustrated and like I wasn't able to paint this one specifically. And then I kind of like forced myself to let that go, and I just worked on landscapes, which is something that's easy and quick, and I just wanted to finish the sketchbook. But I realized quickly that the moody stuff that I was doing wasn't really filling what I needed for my art. So that's what that is. Book is kind of where I figured out who I was, and I kind of explored what I wanted to do, and I was all over the place. And looking back on this sketchbook now, I'm very fond of it and I feel really inspired by it. But while I was going through it, I was so unhappy and I felt very lost and unsure, and I think you can see that on a lot of pages, but this one specifically means a lot to me. I was letting myself kind of be crazy and scribble and feel kind of wild, and that's what I was missing in my work. I was not experimenting as much, but I was continuing with the sort of style that I was working with. But I quickly realized after this one that it felt like too rehearsed. Like I was having a horrible time with Instagram. I'm sure all of you have dealt with that too, where Instagram's kind of like changing a lot, and engagement is so low and all of that. But I was feeling like I had to curate pages again, which is something I used to do, and I although like I feel that it's pretty and I like the spreads a lot, I feel like it was hindering my creativity and not allowing me to feel any real growth. But I still love this sketchbook. It's just very specific, I guess. So to counteract that feeling where I had to like curate everything, I decided to work in what I call like a junk sketchbook. I specifically wanted a sketchbook with shitty paper. I didn't want to like worry about it. I didn't want to fuss about it at all. All I wanted to do was scribble. If that's all I could muster in a day was just a couple of scribbles, that was good enough for me. So then came this one. It's wild and it's weird, and there's a lot of things that I normally wouldn't share on Instagram, pages where I felt frustrated and I just kind of scribbled out my feelings, but in a very me way. And I did studies, I did drawings of Genji from Animal Crossing, I did anything and everything that I liked. And then at this point I found that I would pick up this sketchbook far more than the other one, because this is the one that allowed me to feel free and like I could do anything. There are pages in here that have become other things. There are pages in here that haven't. But the entire thing felt very exciting, and I am really happy that I decided to have both of these sketchbooks going at the same time. Now we're gonna jump into June. I did fill quite a bit of sketchbooks in the time, but if I were to flip through everything, it'll take me like 3 hours. But jumping to June, I felt like I needed to continue the feelings I was feeling in that tiny sketchbook, the junk sketchbook. So I kind of made this my priority, and I was allowing myself to just be completely wild and do whatever I wanted. These papers in between, I put them in there so that it doesn't transfer on the other side. Usually I spray my sketchbook, but I have not done so yet, and this is all the way from June, so who knows when that'll happen. But yeah, I spent a lot of time just scribbling and doing studies and being weird. Like, I mean, look at this. But these are the moments in my sketchbook where I felt very free. And I think there's so much pressure on us to make sure that our art is perfect and to post only the best things and to share the best things and also to create every day. And that's just not realistic. So I kind of learned that with this one. And then there was August, and I started to doubt myself again. I became too, although I love these pages, I'm really happy with them, I clearly became too curated again, and I was too worried about what things looked like and whether or not I could post them. And so I didn't end up continuing with this sketchbook for long because I was feeling frustrated with myself. And I don't know if you guys are the same way, but if a sketchbook is going in a direction you don't like, or I don't like, I will just start a new one, which is probably why I have so many started and so many going at the same time. But It wasn't until I hit the end of this sketchbook that I realized that I'm not necessarily happy with where I'm at, and I wanted to try other things, and this sketchbook just wasn't allowing me to do that. I decided to go back to my trusty moleskin notebook, the one with the really shitty paper, and that allowed me to completely revert back to my free experimentation sort of mentality. But this time, I was less focused on new materials. Like in the first couple ones, I had just started using colored pencils, but this one was more about kind of figuring out how I wanted to illustrate stories and convey messages and stuff. And although not every page is filled with that, it is an important part of this one. So I was thinking a lot about words along with imagery, even if the words didn't mean anything at all. I just was kind of going with it. I also spilled coffee on this sketchbook. I did get some new materials during this time because my birthday's in September, so I was experimenting with like pastels, and that was fun and all, but it has made flipping through the sketchbook an absolute nightmare. The very end of the sketchbook is the most important part to me. I decided that I wanted to participate in Folktale Week, which is in November. And at this point, I wasn't drawing much. There was a lot going on. My sister was visiting, and I was pretty much using like every excuse in the book to not draw. But it was mostly because I felt unsure of where my art was heading, and I was going through that cycle again. But then I decided to just pick up this challenge like last minute. I think I started thinking about it like a few days before it started. I started to think about the words before the imagery, which is like a new weird thing for me. So I came up with this story, and then from there I was trying to find the images that worked with it, and it was a different way of working, but I felt really excited to do the work. So this is where I wrote out the full story, and then there's some bits in here where I was experimenting with the style and what I wanted to get out with the actual images. The rest of the sketchbook is filled with pretty much nonsense, but these last couple of pages really set the tone for my next one. Of course, in between these two, there were others that I was working on in the same time, but this one is the final one of the year. I started it out with Folktale Week, which ended up being very important for me. I was able to get the entire thing done in the week that it ran, and I felt really happy and really proud of myself and excited that I was drawing every single day again. At this point, I got some pretty mean feedback from a family member, but at the time I felt like it was pretty obvious that people wouldn't like my stuff because they weren't finished pieces. So I started to panic, and I went through a spiral where I stopped doing artwork for about 2 weeks, or maybe longer. And even though I was really proud of the stuff I was doing beforehand, I felt very nervous about it. I thought, well, it doesn't matter if I like it, no one else will, and then I won't be able to, continue to do this as a career. And I kind of stepped back and reset, and then realized that the person that said that thing just doesn't really understand, and their experiences with artwork are very different from mine and yours and everyone else's. And I think that I can't please everyone, and although it's sad that I can't please specific people in my family, it was very nice to come to the realization that I didn't have to, so I decided one night that, you know what, I'm gonna fill this entire sketchbook, what's left of this entire sketchbook, in 1 week. So this was right before Christmas. I was like, okay, by the holidays, I'm going to get this sketchbook completely finished. That ended up not happening, but honestly, I'm still really happy because I ended up filling more pages than I normally would have, and so it felt really exciting again. And I started to think about the way that I interact with a sketchbook, and I was allowing myself to experiment like I have in the past, allow myself to do fan art and things that aren't necessarily considered good art, and that in itself allowed me to explore things that I've been wanting to explore and feel very happy to create again. This page in particular, I was doing studies of an artist, and it started out bad, and it ended up with this color study, and I'm still really happy with it, and it made me realize that I like this certain color palette together, and what it is that I like about other people's work that I could try to incorporate in my own stuff. So although this isn't necessarily anything beautiful or impressive or exciting, I feel like that in and of itself shows that I've learned, or at least that I'm trying to learn, that it's okay to have ugly sketchbooks, and it's okay to not reach your goals, and it's okay to not be where you want to be, because as long as you're trying, you clearly still care about it, and that's almost enough. I decided I'm gonna continue with that feeling, that mentality that I can just do whatever it is I want to do, and it doesn't matter if things are finished, it doesn't matter if things are sketchy, it doesn't matter if it's fan art or just color swatches or studies or original pieces. It literally doesn't matter, because as long as I'm creating, I'm still doing what I love, and I'm still working towards bettering my art, even if individual pieces don't feel like it in the moment. So I have a few pages done in this one. This one my fiance made me, and it's so gorgeous. If you would like to see the full flip through of all of these sketchbooks, I have a Patreon where you can see that. I have a video where I'm just flipping through all of them without talking, but I do have monthly flip throughs where all of these books are included, and I talk through them, give some of the background behind each piece and what I was thinking, and all of that stuff. I talk very heavily about trying to find my art style over there. There's like a lot of other perks of being a patron, so if you are interested, I would really love for you to check it out. I hope that looking into the few sketchbooks I showed you inspired you in some way, and maybe 2022 can be the year of us just drawing to draw and feel like kids again, and just being happy in our sketchbooks and not putting so much pressure on ourselves. There's so much going on in the world that the last thing we need is to like beat ourselves down because a page in our sketchbook isn't Instagram worthy. So I hope for nothing but the best for you in 2022, and I cannot wait to talk to you again in the future.